espnfc, Craig Burley, Shaka Hislop, Sebastian Salazar here in studio. Guys, we are lucky enough in this show to be joined by not one, but both stars of the Gab and Jules podcast, Gabriella Marcotti and Julian Laurent. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Jules, I want to start with you. It's kind of the transfer rumor turned report of the day. A report out of France linking Kylian Mbappe with Real Madrid, a summer move worth a staggering amount of money. What more can you tell us?
Well, yeah, it's something that we've known for a little bit now. Real Madrid making known to everyone who wants to listen, really, that Mbappe would be the big priority come next summer. I think they would have tried to maybe sign him last summer or even probably the summer before. We knew also that they were very close to getting an agreement with Kylian Mbappe when he was still at Monaco before joining Paris at some point. So maybe he will want to stay home a bit more and then maybe leave in a year or two or even more than that. And just finally, let's remind everyone the relationship and the history already between Mbappe and Real Madrid. This is a player that Real Madrid have tried to sign even when he was 11. When he was 11, he used to go there during the school holidays in France to train with the youth teams at Real Madrid. He went for a few years. Real Madrid is the club of his dream, the club that he loved as a kid, mostly because Zinedine Zidane, one of his idols, was playing there. So he's always said that one of his dreams is to play for Real Madrid one day. And again, like I've said many times on the show, it will happen for sure next summer. That remains to be seen.
Craig, $500 million for one player?
Well, it's at this point I defer to Gabriele Marcotti, who always tells me about financial fair play. Gab, so how the hell is this going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those things where the $500 million gets kind of thrown out there. What's really important here, and I think what we need to focus on, is get the agreement in place between Real Madrid and Kylian Mbappe. Get an agreement. You know, you're not supposed to negotiate with the player before the club, but the reality is it always happens. Get that in place, get that commitment in place, get those numbers in place, and then you figure out how it's going to happen. From Real Madrid's perspective, it's a serious numbers issue. Obviously, hugely profitable club, but you're looking at Karim Benzema, who still has years left on his contract and is a favorite of Florentino Perez. You still got Gareth Bale that, nobody will take off your hands. You still have James Rodriguez. You just spent money on Eden Hazard. You have Vinicius, who is still young. You've got Rodrigo, who is banging them in. You have Jovic. You can move some of those. That's before we get into Asensio and Isco, all those guys. You can move some of these guys. You can't move all of them. So I think you would have to generate a significant amount of cash because, remember, they did spend a ton of money this past summer. And I think this is where you would start worrying in terms of hierarchies and playing times and keeping everybody happy. So I think it's a complicated one. It's a slow burn. As Jules said, they've been after Mbappe for years and years. It looked as if he was going there before that deal was sort of torpedoed and he went to Paris Saint-Germain instead from Monaco. I think that the best you can hope for if you're Real Madrid, and most likely I think what happened here is they had one of those poor parlays, as they might call them in France, where they had a chat, they had outlined back of the envelope things, probably through intermediaries. They know what the kid wants, and they're moving in that direction. But I wouldn't get overly excited about anything immediate happening.
Surely this can't be the best way to build a team.
Bring in the best players?
$500 million on one player?
Well, I think that,
on one player?
I think the money will be exaggerated, and of course there's a lot goes into the salary as well. I do think
Madrid doesn't need help in a lot more places?
Madrid, like a lot of clubs, need to make big decisions in terms of how they're going to balance it. But as the boys have pointed out, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. The money, I can't comment on what kind of money will be there. But I think come the summer, I think the time would be right come the summer for him to make that move. He's got more than enough experience now. He's got the medals in the bag. He's had the success with France. He has the experience. I think going at 20 or 21 years old, around about thereabouts, you're going to potentially have a decade, if you're injury-free, a decade of great success as an individual and hopefully from a club perspective. And I think the time is not far away from him making that move. How they balance the whole squad and financial things, well, I'll leave that up to other people.
I think that's the thing. Just as a pure talent, as who soon will be the premier talent in world football, yes, listen, Real Madrid go out and go after that ilk of player. Now, how they do the numbers is entirely up to them. And $500 million on one player, I never thought we'd be having this discussion, but then at the same time, I didn't think we'd be talking about 250 million or whatever it was for Neymar. Similarly, though, and as Jules points out, PSG may want to offer Mbappe similar terms as Neymar. And now, if I'm not mistaken, PSG similarly have financial fair play issues. And now to put another player on that kind of money, is your assumption that Neymar is going to leave? And if so, on what terms, especially given what we saw play out over the course of this summer? This is intriguing to me.
When you sign Eden Hazard in the summer, you're signing a guy who's been there, seen it, done it, and he's a very exciting player. But this is another level.
Yeah.
This is a different stratosphere.
Different stratosphere than Hazard.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because of the age scenario as well. Because of the age scenario and the excitement levels. I mean, Eden Hazard is a very, very good player. This guy...
Who's going to defend for this team? Who's going to defend for Real Madrid?
Don't worry about that. We worry about that later on.
Well, what I'm saying is I think this is more exciting than, say, there was talk previously of bringing Neymar in. That he was going to PSG as a bridge to get him from Barcelona to Real Madrid. We know that boat has sailed a little, that ship has sailed a little bit, it seems. But I think this would be a signing that just gets Real Madrid, and I think football fans in general, just sitting back and going, wow, this has to be watched. That's how exciting this kid is.
Jules, give us your instinct here. What do you think is going to happen next summer?
So, I mean, my heart, first of all, says, please stay with us for a little longer. My mind says, first, just quickly the money. PSG believe that he's worth now between 300 and 400 million euros, which is a hell lot of money, and not everybody can afford that, and they're not even sure that Real Madrid can afford it. So this is where it is. And even if Mbappe says, I want to go to Real Madrid, they'll say, okay, if they show us the money and we find an agreement, no problem. If you don't want to be here, we can let you go. But until they show the money on the table, then PSG will say, we don't know if anyone can afford you. I think he will stay another year. The thing for Real Madrid is the more they wait, the more expensive it will going to be. If you do a deal with him before the Euros, you might avoid an extra 50 or 100 million because he might lead France to winning the Euros. If you wait another year and let's say win the Champions League with PSG as well, then that would add another 50 or 100 million on someone who would have won the World Cup, the Euros and the Champions League, all that before the age of 22. So it would make sense for Real Madrid to try their best to make it this summer. I don't think PSG will want to lose both Neymar and Mbappe in the same summer. They would be crazy to do that. And I think if one has to go come next summer, it will have to be Neymar more than Mbappe. But again, with players' power now, you could not, guess it or imagine what can happen.
He's worth more than Jules' turtleneck, put it that way.
Oh, okay, easy. Gab, go on. I know you had something to say.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I totally take Jules' point. Like, as he grows, as Ronaldo and Messi age, if he continues on that upward trajectory, he gets more and more expensive. Equally, though, and yes, I'm being a conspiracy theorist here, if you can get a deal in place with him now, every year that passes and he does not extend his contract with Paris Saint-Germain, I think he's got, Jules will tell us, but I think it's 3 years now that he's got left. If you can get him on board and say, listen, we can't afford you now, but don't extend your contract, let's get this deal in place, and maybe in a year or two, wind it down, and then all of a sudden, it might be a different issue. And I think equally, Paris Saint-Germain will be aware of that. So it's something that can work both ways. The one thing I would say is we rarely see Real Madrid playing that long game with players, certainly not in the Florentino Perez era.
Okay, let's go from the beginning of a superstar career to potentially the end.
Why is it the end? Because he's leaving MLS, it's the end.
Yes, in my eyes, yes. Zlatan Ibrahimovic tweeting this on his future. I came, I saw, I conquered. Thank you, LA Galaxy, for making me feel alive again. To the Galaxy fans, you wanted Zlatan, I gave you Zlatan. You're welcome. The story continues. Now go back to watch baseball. Gab, what's next for Zlatan?
Well, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's November. There's no baseball for them to watch until spring training. So, look, I think what we're going to see now and what we have been seeing already, Don Garber alluded to it as well, although I'm not sure he was right about AC Milan. Mino Raiola is doing his job as an agent. He's doing the rounds, and he's got Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and you've got a very clear idea of what a fit Zlatan Ibrahimovic can do. Go and put whatever percent discount you want on MLS goals and MLS percentages. You can still get on a free transfer and with hopefully reasonable wages a guy who will have an instant media impact and will score, depending on your discount, X many goals for you in whatever league. And he'll lift a club and he'll bring experience and whatever else. And he knows that, and he's doing the rounds all around Europe, and he's trying to get fans excited at clubs that are perhaps struggling, so they put pressure on the club to bring him in as an 18-month fix or whatever. Really, Zlatan holds all the cards right now.
Well, they didn't quite conquer, did they?
No, he didn't.
Because
I mean, if conquering is winning the title.
But what I would say is, I personally think he was, no matter about what some of the terminology was, he brought what it said on the tin. When Major League Soccer and the Galaxy decided to bring him in, it said on the tin, you're bringing in equality, big time, controversial individual who is going to produce on the field. And he did all that. Some people didn't like his rhetoric at times, but I think he raised the level of expectations and he raised the profile, in my opinion, of Major League Soccer.
Yeah, definitely an impact that will be felt on the negative side in MLS. Let's see if he ends up in Serie A. If he does, surely it will be discussed between Gab and Jules on the Gab and Jules podcast. Don't miss it over at espnfc.com. Maurizio Sarri offered this explanation after taking Ronaldo off in the 55th minute against AC Milan. Over the weekend, over the last month, he had this little knee problem. He had a knock in training, and it hurt the collateral ligament. When he trains at high intensity or plays, it unbalances him, so he ends up overcompensating, and it damages the calf and thigh muscles. Very scientific explanation there. A little bit different story than what we're getting from Ronaldo's teammate on the Portuguese national team, Gonçalo Paciencia, who says, I don't have a medical degree, but he looked fine to me.
Well, thanks a lot.
Boy, that is definitive. All right, Gab, maybe you can explain it to us. Why are we getting such different stories here regarding Ronaldo's health?
Really?
Yes.
Okay,
really.
So let me explain this. Maurizio Sarri has a whole medical staff filled with sports science people. He probably doesn't have any kind of college education. He's probably seen Cristiano Ronaldo for, a couple hours in training. He's not a coach. He's just a guy, basically, who happens to be good at playing football. And a guy who's probably also deathly scared to know that there's probably, from a Portuguese perspective, there's no good answer to this. What are you going to say? Oh, yeah, Cristiano looks like he's limping. He's not as good as he was. Or he looks a little sluggish, right? Only bad things can come of that. So he comes out and he gives this anodyne quote like, oh, gee, what do I know? He looks fine to me. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I don't think we should put any stock whatsoever in what this dude says. Now, if it's the Portuguese medical staff who comes out and, expresses a contrary opinion to Juventus's medical staff, by all means. If it's Cristiano Ronaldo himself saying, oh, yeah, I had a few niggles. But, come on, Paciencia? Really?
This is like walking into a hospital. And there's a 1,000 surgeons and doctors behind this wall, and the receptionist goes, no, he's fine, send him home. Yeah. He's fine, nothing to see here, move on.
Right.
I mean, yeah, but he looks fine to me.
So if the surgeon tells you that there's a problem...
We didn't get to the surgeon.
Then why is he playing?
So
if you believe that he's really injured, why is he playing in November?
I'm saying...
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm saying he looks like he is carrying a problem, which is what the Juventus medical team have passed on to their head coach, their manager. We have an individual who has as much medical knowledge as my big shoe.
So the Portuguese national team is just risking him then? They're just saying, no, we'll risk him with this injury that we believe he has.
Well, we haven't heard from the
Portuguese... He hasn't played yet, Sebby. The game's on Thursday.
He's training, Gab. He's training. If he's hurt, why is he training?
He was training before. He played on Sunday.
Yes, but if he's injured, if we keep hearing he's injured, why is he being risked in November? Why, Gab?
Because he's obviously trying to play through the injury. He thinks he can give you an hour or whatever.
He's not that injured, so he's not
That's a decision they made.
Okay, right.
But
so Sarri trying to protect him here? Is that what's happening?
Wait, what are we doing here?
Well, it's so easy.
Where we pulled this quote from? I mean, seriously, what are we doing with this bloody quote? Joe blogs most people have never heard of, puts eyeballs in Ronaldo's knee when he walks through the door and passes back information to Turin that there's nothing wrong with them. Dear heavens.
Jules, we're laughing too hard in studio. Can you help us here with some perspective?
I mean, my only point is, if he has that injury at training, I don't know why. And I know Gab says he can play through the injury, through the pain. He can give you an hour. Don't play him at all. He's been rubbish for the last 4 weeks. There's not one game in the last 4 weeks where he's done something decent in a game. He took him off in the Champions League already, and Ronaldo was not happy. And after the game, he said, yeah, he's got a little something there. And then he plays him again at the weekend in Serie A, and he's even worse than he was in midweek. And then he takes him off again. Don't play him at all. And don't play him at all. And if he has a niggle with his knee, then leave him at home for the 2 weeks. Don't send him with Portugal. He can miss a couple of, meaningless friendlies that his team would win without him anyway. And then he's fitter for when Juventus go back after the international break.
Go ahead, Gab.
But they're not meaningless friendlies. They're qualifiers. Portugal hasn't qualified yet. Far more importantly, if I were unkind, I might point out, as you well know, Julian, he's looking to break Ali Dai's all-time international goal-scoring record
Come
as well.
on.
But you do make a good point about, why did Sarri play him? And I think we know the answer to that. A, medical science it's not exact, it's not black and white. B, Cristiano is one of those maniacal guys who thinks he knows his body better than anybody else, and probably does. And he obviously wanted to play. And C, I agree with you, he's been poor for the last month, but even when Ronaldo's poor, he can still strike a ball or win a penalty or whatever, as he did, for example, against Verona. So they still feel he makes a contribution. Let's see what Portugal does with him. What I can tell you is Juventus are watching this very, very carefully. They'll be liaising with the Portuguese medical staff, not including, of course, Dr. Gonçalo Paciencia, who is most definitely, he's like that doctor from The Simpsons. And they'll be making sure that he's taken care of and that, they'll do their best not to aggravate the injury. This is not anything that anybody wants.
Shaka, if he is injured, should Juve be risking him?
No, they shouldn't. But as I said some time ago, I think this is on Ronaldo. Ronaldo says he thinks he can play and he wants to play. And I don't think Sarri has the status to tell him no. And what you're seeing is a less than 100% Ronaldo, struggling by his own standards, and a manager who, again, is not the one to tell Ronaldo otherwise.
Well, we can have a discussion about injuries and form and whatnot. That's fine. And, it does look as if, and we'd have to defer to Juventus and their medical team saying, well, he's been treated for some issues. But what we can't do, really, is bring up a quote from Joe Bloggs, who just has eyeballed him.
Okay.
And that's all the credentials we need, that there's something going on here with Juventus that's conspiring against Ronaldo. Because when he walked into the hotel foyer, he was fine.
Okay. So Craig is now setting the journalistic standards for the show. No more Dr. Paciencia. So Craig is now setting the journalistic standards for the show. No more Dr. Paciencia.
I've taken a dive in the last 3.5 minutes.
Okay. Plenty more of this on Extra Time. Hope you'll enjoy it. You can always find it over on the YouTube channel. This has been making the rounds on social media today. It's Chelsea's new fine system under Frank Lampard. The big one, £20,000 if you're late to training. But some other pretty hefty numbers as well. £10,000 if you don't report illness or injury on time. £2,500 if you're late to report time for training. £500 per minute if you're late to a meeting. £1,000 if you wear the wrong thing on the wrong trip. So
a little bit late for match day is, but
$2,500, right?
Yeah, compared to late for training, but it's late for started training, I suppose, which has happened. Clearly, the whole salary system, ecosystem has moved.
Right.
But as Shaq was saying to us earlier, there are PFA guidelines for fining players.
2 weeks' wages is the most you can fine a player for any indiscretion. So back in our day, those fines wouldn't have applied, let's just suffice to say.
I was staggered at the numbers, the zeros on the end. I mean, the first thing that I say is, wow, these guys are making that much that you can.
Yeah, well, I suppose I suppose at 20,000, it just doesn't comprehend. But, for a lot of the guys at Chelsea, not for everyone, but for a lot of the guys, it'll be like sign a check, job done. I don't remember fines anything above, for lateness. I don't member finds anything above 100 or 200 pounds.
And even then, more times than not, we just usually collect it and use it as a kitty for a night out.
Yeah.
When the boys go out, we just spend that.
So that would be a good night out.
That would be a very good night out.
For somebody. Julian, wonder if you can give us some perspective here. Are these numbers kind of out of context, out of the ordinary, or is this what you might see at other clubs?
No, it's pretty much what you see at other clubs. I think the one for being late at training, the 20,000 one, is maybe a bit higher than what it is in other top clubs in England and in Europe, from what I know and what I've been told. Although it's it's the one really that should never happen, because you report to the training ground easily an hour before the training actually starts. So even if you haven't made that full hour and you got there half an hour ago, there's still plenty of time for you to be on the training pitch at the right time, at the time that the coach wants you to be there. And I think it's just about discipline. And I like the fact that Lampard has gone quite heavy on some of them, because I think it's very important. And trust me, there's a lot of clubs as well where the amount are not so big, and players have a lot of liberties as well, because they think, do you know what, I can easily pay 200 or even 500 or even 1,000 there. And I think, at Chelsea this season, he also shows what kind of spirit is around the new manager, obviously, and also the first team squad.
Particularly when you live in London. You've got to factor in the M25, man.
What's that expensive?
What?
The M25.
Traffic.
No, M25 is
timing, right?
It's a motorway highway.
It's a big parking lot, really.
It circles London, basically, and it can be a car park. I was once, late for training, but I was once actually late for a match day at Stamford Bridge, because I got stuck in sort of Shepherd's Bush area. And it was back in the days when we didn't go to a hotel the night before, but we'd meet at, say, maybe 2 hours before the game, and it was absolutely gridlocked. And I knew every back straight to go, but even I couldn't do it. The manager wasn't happy at all, but it's unfortunately in London it can be very expensive because it happens.
So I don't know exactly what's on tomorrow's show, but I don't think it'll be more stories of you in traffic. Is that okay?
Well, it won't be, because whether you think the manager was a little theatrical or not, you can't
be doing that.
Right.
You cannot be running over doing that to anybody, be it an official, a spectator who's got anything. You just can't do it. Another player.
Is it something worthy of stripping him of the captain's armband? They're letting him keep it.
Are they? Well, not in the 7-game ban, they're not.
Well, obviously not, but they've said he's going to remain the captain when he returns.
Wow.
That's on them. That's a relationship between them and everybody within that dressing room.
The man that never made a mistake, never made anything.
Okay, great. Thank you for that pearl of wisdom. We have plenty of pearls of wisdom on Extra Time. One of them was a story of violence yesterday that you told about Vinnie Jones in the tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
And Shaka, do you have any stories of
similar
violence?
I am anti-violence.
I don't doubt that you are anti-violence. But have you witnessed anything over your career that
pro-holidays?
I'm sure Craig would remember this. The John Hartson, Al Berkovich. It was a volley, and it was between teammates. We was teammates at West Ham.
Save it.
Save it. I'll save it. I can't tell you.
You can't tell me?
No.
All right, we will save it for Extra Time. Extra Time, always available for you on the YouTube channel. Enjoy. We'll see you next time. All right, welcome into this Wednesday edition of Extra Time. We got Craig, Shaka, and myself, very much not in the third person, speaking to you from here in studio.
Well, who are you?
I'm me. Just Seb. We also have Gavin Jules.
You can't.
Couldn't help it.
I'm just Seb.
Gavin Jules are with us as well. I feel like that might be my first name because everyone's like, oh, it's just Seb.
Who wears peach better?
Who wears peach better, you or Stevie? Are you just fishing for a compliment right now?
No.
Because, I mean, the competition isn't very steep in that department.
That's not very nice, talking about a man who's not here.
Oh, yeah, right. Like we've never done that before.
Are you saying he's not a particularly good dresser? Well, the thing is...
You're saying... I've not even said anything in this segment. These are all your words.
When he wears peach, he also goes for a tie that's peach, doesn't he?
Well...
But he goes for the full-on peach.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, he's... yours is more subtle.
Classy.
Well...
He doesn't diversify his peachness.
I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. All right, first question here.
Didn't know that was a sentence.
Based on Chelsea's recent success, why aren't more teams looking towards their academies? Or is Chelsea's unique or that much better than the rest? Gab, this feels like a question for you. You live close to the Chelsea grounds, yes?
Yes, and I'll answer the question, although I hope Craig addresses this later. On the show, he told us a story about being late for a game because he was stuck in traffic in Shepherd's Bush. Shepherd's Bush, for those who don't know, is about 3 miles away from Stamford Bridge, give or take. And I'm assuming Craig was younger at the time. I would have thought you could run 3 miles in, 25 minutes back then? Were you tempted to just jump out and just run through traffic?
Well, I wasn't tempted for the fine from the Hammersmith Police Department for leaving my car in a very busy area. So I was driving.
Oh, I thought you had your driver, you see.
Oh, wow, not in the day, guys.
That was later on in his career.
I just started working for him recently.
So look, this whole business with Chelsea's youth academy, and Chelsea have been absolutely slammed and hammered over the years because people think, oh, well, they win so much at youth level, why don't they just throw these guys into the first team? And I think the reality is we're witnessing something that's pretty unusual here, in the sense that you've got the combination of a manager who worked with several of these guys last year. You have an assistant manager in Jody Morris who worked with many of these guys at youth level, and you simply have the sort of the weird, freakish quirk that I think this year, Chelsea, if I'm correct, I'm saying that Chelsea have used 8 academy graduates. And it's going to be 9 when Loftus-Cheek returns. I think out of those 9, 6 of them joined the club before they turned 10, before the age of 10. And that's really unbelievable, because a lot of times we talk about academy graduates, but we're talking about, Paul Pogba's a United product because he joined them when he was 16 years old, when he was nearly fully formed. So I personally think this is a statistical quirk. And evidence of this is that most of these other guys Chelsea have produced in past seasons, the Patrick Bamfords and Nathaniel Chalobahs and guys like that, it's not like they've gone elsewhere and turned into superstars.
Actually, Chelsea were one of the clubs that were criticised up until recently for not playing the kids.
Sure, sending them on loan, yeah.
So, you got Man City and Liverpool who are flying, so there's no reason there. Chelsea are using kids this year for all the reasons Gab mentioned. And Arsenal, to be fair, although they're having a struggling season, Arsenal have played quite a lot of kids this year. And, can't think about them all, but Saka, Joe Willock, there was a couple of guys that play up front as well. So they've played some kids. So there's been a lot of youngsters getting quite a bit of game time in the Premier League this season.
We were talking a lot about Chelsea and the fine system during the show. You played with Frank Lampard at West Ham. Was he ever late to training?
No, not that I can recall. His dad was the coach there. His dad was Harry Redknapp's number 2, so they came in together. So no, not that I recall. He was always there well after, again, because of his dad, and it kind of bore fruit.
Gab, question for you here. Do any of you guys know how to easily explain what the new position FIFA has given Arsene Wenger means exactly? It's something like FIFA Chief of Global something?
It's global technical development. So basically, he's going to be responsible for... It's sort of a twofold job. It kind of builds upon the job that Marco van Basten had. He's going to be responsible for the technical development of football around the world, which means he's going to liaise with the heads of development in the different confederations, where obviously there's coaching programs, licensing programs. The head of development in CONCACAF, by the way, fun fact, is one Jason Roberts, and he's going to, he's going to basically talk to these guys. He's going to be head of the technical study group at FIFA competitions, where they sort of study trends in the game and stuff like that. And I think most crucially, he's going to be FIFA's liaison to IFAB. Look, the dude's 70 years old. Is he going to have any real administrative power? Probably not. But I think what we know about Wenger is, if you're going to have him on board, you generally want him, at this stage of his career, you want him on the footballing side.
Hey, Jules, I wonder your perspective on this. You think we'll ever see Wenger in coaching again?
Yeah, he still wants to be fair, and I think he will be ready to quit the FIFA job if a big club comes for him. It was obviously, I still think, or at least in his mind, quite close to the Bayern Munich job. even if, you know, obviously what we get from Bayern Munich and from him is a bit, you know, different and complicated, but I still think that he thought he could have got that job, and I think he still believes and certainly still wants to try to get a similar job at some point somewhere, because as great as that new job is for him, because he wants to be respected, he wants to be heard and listened to, and he has ideas and he's so good in that kind of environment where he can share his knowledge and speak to people and come up with ideas. I think that would be great. He still misses massively the day-to-day coaching job, on the training pitch with the players, talking, team meetings, preparing for a game and the game in itself, all that pressure and everything. He misses that. And I think he would give anything to go back to a club bench for sure.
From Paul Mariner's Bugle, we go to Stevie Nichols' Shepherd's Pie. What does Xhaka think of Jorginho's penalty technique, and does he think he would be able to save one back in his prime? What do you think of the technique first? Because it's weird. Huh?
It's really odd. And see, now, ordinarily, kickers have a switch up, let's say, in that if the goalkeeper stands up longer than you expect, or if they move in a certain direction, you can then just go, roll it the other side. My concern is, and clearly I'm not the one to answer this, is once you take that big jump, can you then really change up and put the ball in the other corner? And I'm not sure. Jorginho knows. We see Joseph Martinez employ a similar technique. I'm not sure that he has...
Jorginho waits till like the last step.
Yeah, but looking at Martinez, and I've seen him take a couple of poor ones, I don't think he can change once he's made that big jump. So, but you're not seeing that with Jorginho. So it's an odd one.
The only technique that bothers me is the technique whether the back of the net ripples. But as far as I'm concerned, they could come up to the ball, walking on his hands. If it hits the back of the net, I don't care how he gets it done.
Okay.
But what's for him?
I'd like to see that, though. That'd be good.
It works for him.
How much more an advantage do you need as a penalty shooter?
Sorry?
How much more of an advantage do you need as a penalty
well,
shooter?
The trouble is...
Right? Why risk that extra weird thing?
I took penalties for most of my clubs.
Did you do anything weird, or did you just do normal stuff?
No, pretty normal guy.
Yeah.
And, well, I didn't do that. The trouble is with penalties... The trouble is with penalties, I always felt it's a game of bluff with the goalkeeper. It's a game of bluff, and you start second guessing yourself, and sometimes you've got to make your mind up where you're going to put the ball. But I tell you, I've changed my mind on a run-up because of the goalkeeper. And so it's down to the individuals. I personally think Jorginho is very, very adept at doing what he does in the penalty spot.
Final question comes from the Dan Thomas burner account. Would Craig rather be in a mathematics class taught by Xhaka, a French lesson taught by Jules, listen to Gab talk about financial fair play, or take Seb back out and pay for his Uber and the meal?
You have to pick one.
Well, I'd rather take you back out.
Hey, there it is. A win for Seb.
Because that meant I would be back out.
His grace.
I couldn't be taught with somebody wearing a turtleneck, for starters.
I feel like that's the perfect way to learn French.
And
the last time I saw a man on here wearing a turtleneck was Ralph Honigstein.
And given what we've heard from Jules and how he teaches his kids French, he is no headmaster to be messing with.
And let me tell you,
goodness me.
Gab's financial fair play lesson would start at 9 a.m. before the bell rang probably, and would last without any lunch breaks or anything, would last well beyond the final bell going. So that rules that out. And Shaq was what?
Maths.
It's only maths he knows is how many days holiday he's getting a year. And it's lots.
That's a complex conundrum.
Lots.
You know the best part of all this is? You were the one that brought up financial fair play on the show.
It was, but it was a segue of getting out of answering that question. So I just threw it straight out there.
The underlying agendas on this show, man, are so rich.
What's the agenda?
The show within
what was the question?
Show.
Was Mbappe?
Yes.
What's
Well,
the
it wasn't in my
agenda? What's
contract.
the question?
It wasn't in my contract to answer it, so I threw it out to Gab, who knows way more about financial fair play than I do. So what was the point of answering the question in the first place?
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
You lost?
Yeah.